let me kick off with that. So that was kind of my where I want to start with all this. So, um, give me a kind of a very quick, brief breakdown of your business, in terms of how it looks operationally, and also kind of like from a without getting into all the detail, but like an idea of kind of the revenue streams you have, because obviously you ship products out, but you also have the premises there.
Yeah, sure. The business was co-founded by myself, my wife Bagya, and my father Brendan. From the day-to-day end of things, it's myself and Bagya that run the business. There's three of us in total. We have a sales manager, Richard, as well. My background is distilling and production. Bagya's is more IT, project management, marketing, MBA. So we both run different aspects of the business. Baggy does marketing and she runs the visitor centre here, and I do production, general administration, and then Richard is sales. In terms of the revenue streams, there's the visitor centre, so the tours and tastings that we do, cocktail masterclasses, private events, and then in terms of we have the production end of things, so that's selling the actual product itself. So at the moment, that includes our gin, Maharani gin, our Pomelo vodka, which will be rebranded Pomelo Citrus Vodka next year, Maharani Pomelo Vodka next year. We've Ireland's only absinthe, Rebel City absinthe. We just released an aged gin as well with our friends in Elbow Lane, so that's just going out next week. We've gift boxes, that kind of stuff, and we do that domestically, so the gin is available in quite a lot of super values in the Munster region. It's available nationwide in Dunn's. It's available in good off licenses, and the absinthe is available in places like Celtic Whisky and Bradley's in Cork. And then we do domestically, and we also export to a small degree in Germany and Switzerland, also the States, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and we just launched this week in the United Arab Emirates, so in both Dubai and Abu Dhabi with African and Eastern, so we'll get quite a lot of distribution there, of about 35, 40 stores across the UAE, starting this month, essentially. So yeah, we have an online store as well, and but the bulk of the business is either selling the actual products and then the visitor centre.
Okay. If you were to if there was one area of the business, one revenue stream of the business that you wouldn't like to lose, what would kind of the main your main revenue stream, where would it come from? Is it just exporting products or?
At the moment, it's probably 55% products and 45% visitor centre.
Wow.
So the visitor centre has become crucial since we launched that post-COVID. Really makes the business more viable. Obviously, there's an upper limit to the visitor centre's growth. Like
Yeah,
it's doing very well, but it's limited by the space. While the
of course.
products can keep growing for a much larger period of time and into a much larger overall revenue. But at the moment, it's fairly evenly split. But it's starting that the products are again outstripping the visitor centre, and hopefully will keep growing strongly next year as well.
Wow. That's interesting to hear. And in terms of so I think maybe it was during COVID, like it seemed like every influencer in the country was coming out with a gin. There was a period there where just the gin just seemed to be the thing that everyone's coming out to. I want to ask you about that in terms of like competition. I don't know nothing about kind of the spirit business, but it seems just from looking at it, it seems to be a very competitive market. It seems like a lot of people have whiskey, there's a lot of gin brands out there. I suppose, how do you manage that, and what's your thoughts on the level of competition in the market?
Yeah, I think, like, I started in spirits production after my master's in brewing distilling in Edinburgh in around 2012, and there was only about 3 or 4 distilleries in the country at that stage, and it's probably 60 to 65 now. And then on top of that, you've a load of people that don't have distilleries but have third-party brands that other people are making for them, so that
Yeah,
you've dozens upon dozens of brands in both gin
yeah,
and whiskey. So there is an intense level of competition. I think the level of new entrants is slowing down, so it's probably reaching a peak of entrants at least, while the volume is holding steady. So that, I think, the future is a bit easier in terms of the level of competition, but in terms of how you would stand out, you really need to have, as the cliche goes, a USP. And in terms of ourselves with our gin, we make it here in Cork, but my wife Baggy sources the botanicals directly from women-run spice collectives in southern India and Kerala, where she's from. So we have that kind of cultural connection of Cork and Kerala. We have a unique flavour profile. We're citrus and spice forward, less juniper forward. So the flavour profile makes us different. And then the story behind us makes us a bit different too, and that allows us to stand out because people have to both enjoy the product, and the gin has won multiple awards, but you also have to kind of get behind the story, and the story is kind of something that people can grasp. And the name Maharani means queen, which is reference to getting it from the botanicals from women's collectives in southern India too. So there's a lot of kind of hooks to the story that people can get behind.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have that, and if you kind of fall into a more of a generic category, then you really just have to focus very much on price. And it's difficult for a small producer to focus only on price because the costs are quite high.
Yeah, interesting. Talking about costs, so we have the general election coming up in a couple of weeks, or next week is it? And obviously, all the the different parties are going on about, what they want to bring in and how they're going to kind of approach the economy and business and enterprise and all that. Within the restaurant business, obviously there's been so much talk about all the challenges there. In your own business, I suppose, what are the kind of the main economic challenges you face, and then maybe what would you like a new government to come in? What sort of actual things would you like them to help you with?
Certainly, obviously, like everyone else, inflation has been a bit of an issue. Basically all of our inputs have gone up, but we're under a lot of price pressure to keep prices lower. So, I mean, in terms of the global supply chain is maybe a little bit outside of their control, but in
Yeah.
terms of things that they can help with, employers' PRSI contributions could potentially be reduced. They do have, for example, a tax rebate for craft beer producers, but there's no such excise rebate for just craft distilleries, so that would be helpful.
Right.
I mean, there's one in America, for example, but there's nothing like that here. And then, just each bottle, if it sells for €35, there's the tax complement is in or around €20, so that it is very high
Wow.
here, the excise level of taxation. I don't see them probably going near excise tax. Unfortunately, it is very high relative to other countries here, but at least something like employers' PRSI. We do have a visitor centre, so that VAT rate did come under the 9% when that was under 9% too.
Yeah.
So whether that'll happen or not, that would also be helpful. But I suppose reducing the amount of government-imposed costs on small businesses in general would be helpful.
Right. You not to get too political with all this, but you do a lot of export, right? I noticed there on your website to America, East Coast and West Coast. There's a lot of talk about Trump's election and the tariffs he's talking bringing in and how this going to affect imports for America. Is that on your radar at all? Is that something that you're conscious of, or?
It would definitely affect things, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're not dependent on the American end of things. We still would sell much more here, and we're starting to look more to the east than to the west recently, especially with the Arab Emirates, and we might have potential to start exporting to India as well. So we kind of, I don't think you'd want to depend too much on one market other than your own domestic market, really. But I think, we did put a lot of effort into the States. For example, I was there 3 times in the last 12 months. We launched in Ohio. And Board B have been very helpful for us as well. They've been very supportive just in general in terms of the business from the start, but particularly with regard to the States, they've been very helpful. So I think it would have a negative effect, especially for smaller producers. Again, the larger guys will be able to maybe absorb that 25% tariff that's being suggested. But I suppose, as per his first term, we never know what's going to happen. So we'll just have to see. But if I was very reliant on the States, it would be a much bigger worry than it is, because it's not something that's we're massively relying on, but it was something that we would have been hoping for a lot of growth going forward, and that kind of maybe it will have to change our projections and our focus, like I say, maybe more towards the east than the west.
Spot on. How, when you look at international trade and exporting your product, is that someone just commented there, putting a comment? Are you supplying to Australia? But is that kind of a big focus for your business?
Yeah, I think like realistically, the size of the market in Ireland isn't enough by itself to sustain a distillery business or a brewery business. Um, so you have to be looking for export, and so we've been exporting since the start in some ways, and the percentage has gone up and gone down. Um, but we're kind of doing a renewed focus again on it next year. Particularly, we might get support from Board B to do a bit more in the States, and then we want to do a good bit more to support Dubai and Abu Dhabi, because we actually have 35 stores and maybe 10 bars stocking it there, which is a good amount that we kind of support. And markets like that are kind of easier to deal with, because in that particular case, the importer is also the distributor, so it's very,
Right.
you can get your hands around it and you can get data back quickly, so it's less complex than large federal markets like USA and India. Sometimes for a company our size, you got to go with the smaller markets first and
Yeah.
get them right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Two final ones, Robert. Bit more maybe lighthearted than the kind of political kind of economic world, global affairs. You're obviously heavily involved in spirit business, and that's kind of your background down to the years. But obviously you have an entrepreneurial spirit to have achieved what you've done and to have built that. Is there, when you look at other businesses, maybe in your own sector or outside of it, is there anything else that you kind of like the look of, you kind of wish you'd started, said that looks good, you admire?
I think in terms of like how they constructed a great brand and great presence in the beer world, Mikkeller in Denmark, I was big fan of how they visually look. Like they got an artist in, I think his name is something Shore, and he constructed a very consistent look for them, and it's kind of playful. You'd always spot their cans out there. Each one of their various beers is a different spin on the same theme, but they've got a great visual look. And at the same time, they've also grew their hospitality end of things, because like from our company point of view, like the hospitality, the visitor center is actually, like I was saying, very important, and very highly rated. By doing a great job there. So Mikkeller are kind of like that. They've got the product, but they've also got a great range of venues. So it's a company I really like to look at and see what they're doing. And then in terms of like maybe the spirits industry, there's quite a lot. Guys that are white spirit focused, like the Boathouse Distillery, they do have great branding as well, and they're doing some really nice stuff with how they distribute their products, and how they have like large containers from 5-liter eco pouches and stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing we're kind of trying to do a bit more. I mean, we're Origin Green Gold members ourselves, and we're kind of take in bottles to reuse a bit. So that kind of stuff, and being more conscious of the environmental end of things as well as the brand visuals. So I like those brands for those two various reasons.
Deadly interesting, right? And that leads us perfectly to the final question, which is your own future then going forward. Where do you see the business in the next 12, 24 months? Do you have any kind of new future growth plans? Or
I think because we launched in Dunnes Stores just this August, that's been going really well for the gin. So we want to try and keep managing that and growing that, and hopefully continue to expand ourselves domestically. So we finally have a nationwide profile for the gin, and we want to kind of nurse that and keep growing that. And then from the export point of view, we want to try and fix things up a little bit more in the States, and then put a big focus on the United Arab Emirates, because it's a good manageable market, and I think it's something that we can kind of do well in. We'll be rebranding and launching the Pomelo vodka next year as well. So at the moment it's down as Rebel City Pomelo vodka, but because it shares the same DNA as Maharani, we'll make it Maharani Pomelo vodka, because the Pomelo is also coming from the women's collectives in southern India. And then we're kind of working on a couple of other projects, which we won't talk about yet because we're just a bit too early, but I think the focus is a bit on those export markets and expanding the distribution profile in Ireland.
Deadly. Spot on. Final, last one just for anyone listening. So where are you located exactly in Cork?
So we're down in the Marina Commercial Park, so that's next in the neighbouring industrial estate to the Marina Market, which
Yeah.
is fairly well known at this stage. We're one of the old Ford factory buildings, so quite easy to find. All the details about both the products and the visitor centre stuff is all on rebelcitydistillery.com, so all the details are there if people are interested.
Spot on. Robert, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
It was great to chat to you.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Lovely.